Good morrow, my lovely little ghosts, and welcome to the Dark Orchard. I'm Laura, and this is the Rockstar Challenge. As I said in my intro, this is the Rockstar Challenge, and I'll get more into what that means in just a moment, but I wanted to say before we start anything that I was challenged to do this challenge by, honey, I'm gonna mispronounce your name, Iceis Augustino. But this is sort of a challenge collab, but because of Iceis, I'm doing this challenge. So let's get into what is the Rockstar Challenge. The Rockstar Challenge is just what it sounds like. You're making yourself into your fantasy rock star. If you were a rock star, what would you look like on stage? And what would you do for the band? Simple as that. So I'm going to have a lot of fun in this video, just reminiscing and talking about things that relate to this topic while I do my makeup, find some jewelry, change my outfit, and transform into my ideal fantasy rock star Laura. So without further delay, let's get started. So first things first, I'm going to add a little black from the Palette Royale palette to the hidden part of my eyelids and then to the underside of my eyelids just to give it a little bit of definition. So first things first, I need to tell you what I would do if I were in a band. And this stems from like childhood dreams. We'll label it childhood. Before my tween stage, I was more into like what everyone was into, which was like Britney Spears, who's still a queen, and the Spice Girls, Backstreet Boys, like mainstream pop music. Really into that. And then I discovered classic rock. Mostly through my cousin's husband, who was in a band. And they played a bunch of classic rock songs, a lot of covers, and their own stuff that really introduced me to the genre. And my entire life, I've thought he was just the coolest person ever. And he is. But because he was in a band and introduced me to that kind of music, on top of course, Kiss, because I'd always loved Kiss because I was named after a Kiss song. But on top of that, he introduced me to other bands as well. And I became completely obsessed with a specific band. That band was Def Leppard. And to be even more specific, I was teetotally obsessed with Rick Allen and the story around him, and more importantly, his determination towards drumming. And that's where it started. That's where it all began. I watched a documentary on Rick Allen after just falling in love with the drums. So if I were in a band, if I were a rock star, I would be a drummer. Hands down. Always wanted to be. So we're building off of that. So yeah, I was obsessed with the drums. So in my fantasy rock star world, I play the drums. So I got the NYX Ultimate Shadow Palette, and I was going to do a separate video on trying the different colors, and I still might if you'd like to see it. But I really, really, really want to use this teal like right now. So I'm going to use it now. And we'll get to the significance of that teal in just a moment, but let me set the stage first. Set the stage. See what I did there? So middle school Laura. I've mentioned this before, but we had this thing where we would have a whole class just for reading, and it was like a 30-minute block at the end of the day. And it was supposed to be the time when we would read books. About the age of 12 or 13, most likely 13-ish, we would have this class where you would go to the class for 30 minutes at the end of the day, or at least mine was at the end of the day, and you'd have to read, or you're supposed to read. Well, the teacher that was over my reading class would sit at her desk and read her newspaper the whole time we were supposed to be reading. So instead of actually reading, me and my friend Rachel would read comic books and like write in our notebooks and stuff. I was a huge notebook person. I will make a video on that later, but I was a big notebook person. and carried around all these different notebooks for different things. And one of them was a notebook specifically for the band I wanted to start. And I had it all figured out. Like, my whole life. Like, I had figured out my entire life in this notebook at the age of 13. Kind of funny, actually. I knew I wanted my band to be called the Unluckies, but not spelt the way that unlucky is spelt. I want it to be like Unluckies, like Keys, and we'd all have like keys as like a theme in the band. And I would draw like different outfits and stuff. And funny thing about my drawings, I wish I had some to show you, but all of my drawings, everyone had really long legs. And I think it was just like the FOMO of not having long legs, but everything had giant legs. And also when I started making clothes, the first time I made pants, the legs were like stilts performer long. But I would draw outfits, I would draw like my friends in different outfits as part of the band, and my friend Rachel was going to be one of the guitarists, and I was going to play drums. We had like fictional lead singer because we hadn't picked that yet, and it was just like really funny looking back at it, but we were so serious about this. And you know, she was taking guitar lessons and I really wanted to learn to play the drums. Here's where the teal color comes in. So we're going to start using the teal while we talk about the significance of the teal. Well, turquoise, cyan blue, I don't know what it's actually called. Do they have a number? No. Just tells you if it's pressed pigment or not. The blue that is this color. Like I mentioned, my cousin's husband was in a band, and he would get all of these like Rockstar magazines, and then he would give them to me like the next month, like the month after he had them. So I was a month behind on them, but I would still get them, and it was mostly just like keeping up with rock music. But then he would get equipment magazines, and oh my goodness, I forget what magazine it was in, but I fell so in love with the drum set. I remember it. I remember opening that magazine, the smell of the magazine, and just locking in on that drum set. And I remember it was $500. A $500 drum set that was just perfection in every way. Everything that little teenage Laura wanted. It was the drum set of my dreams. And I like dog-eared it, and I carried that magazine around with me in my notebook, and I just loved it. I loved it so much, and I continuously told my mother how much I wanted to play the drums, and that's the drum set that I wanted to play. Like, that was it. That was the drum set. So now that I've hyped it up way beyond expectation, let me show you the drum set. Isn't it so pretty? I believe it was almost the exact drum set, if not this exact drum set. And I could just see the Unluckies with the key underneath, and like one of those old like Alice in Wonderland kind of keys underneath it. It was just beautiful. And I could just totally see myself on a stage, right on top of a drum riser, playing that drum set in that kind of setting. I asked for this thing for a solid year. Just like non-stop wanted this specific drum set. I would even like leave the magazine out where my mother could see it, just in case she hadn't heard me. She could see it, but she heard me. She knew exactly what I wanted. I don't remember if it was for my birthday or Christmas. I believe it was Christmas. And I opened a box. Inside of the box was something very, very cool. This thing is what I got, and it was so cool because I could just sit in my floor and practice on it. and oh my gosh, I practiced. You could plug headphones in and listen to your sounds and then like mix it up and make different mixes out of what you'd done. It was fantastic. My brain was like, how am I supposed to learn how to play the drums on something that's not like drum length? And I didn't comprehend when I was a tiny teen that I could apply those skills that I learned to a actual drum set later on. The irony here is that my cousin's husband's friend, who was a drummer, borrowed my electric drum set and actually played it and mixed songs on it for his own band. Little teenage me didn't comprehend how to do any of that. It was just a bunch of unfortunate events that led to me not really learning how to play drums. And over time, I became more of a teenager and more interested in other things. But I always did have that dream. And in the back of my mind, I always thought that I would still do something with music. And to this day, I want to be in that realm. Of course, with my clothing design, not necessarily being part of a band now, but I'd love to have my designs worn on stage. I should also mention that my mother believed in me so much, and if you follow me on Twitter, you know how supportive my mother is anyway. But I should also mention that she supported my goals so much that she basically supplied my entire band that I never had. I had a building full of a keyboard and the electric drum set and at least one guitar, maybe two, and microphones and karaoke machines. And she always encouraged me to do karaoke when we were in Nashville, making those in front of the camera and on the stage dreams come true. In that same building where I had the guitars and the drum set and the keyboard and the karaoke machines, but I had microphones in this building. And I had two of them. They were attached to the karaoke machine, which meant I could record onto a cassette tape through the karaoke machine. And I would have friends over, and we would have our own radio show. I do not remember the topics we used to talk about, but I do remember that the keyboard had a collar sound, which was like a ringing sound, and we would be discussing something, like, for example, Buffy. We probably discussed Buffy. And then we'd open the floor to callers, and I would press the button on the keyboard that sounded like a phone ringing, and then I would come on doing a different accent or a different sounding voice and be the caller, and then my co-host, whoever the friend was that was there, would answer the call and interact with the caller. And we would also record songs in between. So we'd have the CD going, and we'd record the CD in between us doing our talk show thing. And we'd have like a mix. We'd do like a Backstreet Boys song, and then talk a little bit, and take a caller, and then we'd have Def Leppard, and then we'd take another caller, and then we'd have Led Zeppelin. And it was just such a mix of different things. And my neighbors, who were also part of my age group, would sometimes take those cassette tapes and then listen to them at their house and then give them back so that we could record something else. We had like our own little talk show that made absolutely no sense, and it was just very based in fantasy, into that Rockstar fantasy, which is what this challenge is all about. And during this time, when I was a tiny teen, stuff like Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost came out. And Dusk had her adorable bat drum set, and she just looked perfect in every way. And then there was also the Josie and the Pussycats live action movie, where the Melody character was just so me. And there were just so many things that played into, you're gonna be at Rockstar when you grow up. Nashville was like my summer home for many, many years. Well, during these years that I wanted to be a drummer, I was totally obsessed with anything remotely rock and roll in the country music city because it was a music city. It was the music city. Like, Nashville is the place to be. And we would go to like a convention center that had a bunch of different musicians there. And it was stuff like up and coming artists all the way up to big name people. And one of those bands was named Hip Kitty. And Hip Kitty was a band with a female front singer, and then the rest of the band were all of these like really punk looking guys. Total outcasts from the entire rest of the convention center, but they were there year after year. I bought their CD, I listened to it on repeat, I know every word still, and their songs get stuck in my head. But of course the Rockstar element of that band really stuck out to me, and they were just another building block to my obsession. I remember going to the Hard Rock Cafe and buying drumsticks from there, and oh my goodness, I treated those drumsticks like gold. And I remember carrying them to the riverfront and laying out on the riverfront with one of my notebooks, and I would write and I would draw and I would just like daydream about using those drumsticks. And I bought drumsticks all over Nashville. Like, I had so many different drumsticks from different places, different stores, different music shops, who knows. And also at this time I was listening to like the Donnas and Avril Lavigne and just like some really angry girl music kind of stuff. So that was definitely fueling my, I'm gonna be in a full female rock band and it's gonna be the coolest thing ever. Because like teenage me thought that would be so super cool. I'm gonna take this little doot doot brush. It looks very much like my other doot doot brush, but this one is white. And I'm gonna go into this blue in the middle here because it looks very much like the blue that I've already added. And I think I'm just gonna go into the corners to see what it does. Okay, a little glitter distribution. So that is my actual Rockstar fantasy. I always thought that I would become a drummer for a famous band called the Unluckies. Now, as for the type of music, of course I wanted to be a drummer in a rock band. I'm now going to remove this red lipstick and replace it with something more befitting Teenage Laura. Because Teenage Laura would have never worn red lipstick unless she accompanied it with black. Teenage Laura always wore black lipstick. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna use some black lipstick. Okay, so Teen Laura would actually mix a black and blue together and do like a blue top lip and a black bottom lip. But we're not gonna go that route because adult Laura has more sense. Okay, so I have this. It's KVD. I've never used KVD before or ever used it before it was KVD, but I think it's black. It looks black. It's called Wizard. So we're gonna use it and see. It almost looks purple on the brush though, so I don't know. I don't like that. Ew. No. This is more like a lip topper. It is black and it does dry like a lipstick, but it's just glitter. It's just gray glitter, basically. So instead, I'm going to be using my tried and true Wet n Wild, and this is a liquid catsuit called Shady Witch from their Halloween collection, which I've mentioned multiple times how much I love their Halloween collection. And I'm just going to go right over top of this KVD because, I mean, it needs to be gone over. Wet n Wild does just fine. And appropriately so, because this is the kind of makeup that Teenage Laura would have had access to. Now that I have my lipstick done, things fell into place and things fell out of place because I just changed as a person. And I still took the path that I wanted to take, and I studied apparel and fashion and photography all through high school, so I still stayed in that same career path. I just didn't go the musician route. And I'm still very proud of everything that I've accomplished. So here's hoping that maybe one day I will actually get one of my designs on a stage somewhere. But enough about that, and back to turning myself into my dream rock star. We've got the eyes, the lips, the basic foundation and contour, which I would never have done as a teenager, by the way. Like, did not know that stuff existed. So what needs to be changed? The clothes. Much better. You know, this hair is very me now, but it's not very teenage Laura. So I think we need to do something about this hair. That's more like it. Something still just isn't right. Yep, that was it. But what else? But now my wrists feel really empty. That's what I needed. So, this has been my Rockstar fantasy. And moral of the story is, don't give up on your dreams. Even if life takes you down a different path, still hold on to those fantasies, because you never know what part they'll play in the grander scheme of things. Sure, I'm not a drummer for an all-girl rock band called the Unluckies who sell out stadiums every night, so I'm not a famous drummer, but I am Laura, and I am still me with all of my same dreams, and that wild imagination and that dreaming girl has turned into me. I may not be what I expected, but I'm very proud of where I am. I'm happy being me, and I'm happy that I can create and design, and I'm happy that my life took the fashion design path that it took, because I do put my all into what I create. So Rockstar fantasy aside, moral of the story is, keep following your dreams even if they deviate, because they will have a bigger part in your life. And because this is a challenge and I was challenged by Iceis, I now challenge Cool Noodles 24 to do her Rockstar Fantasy Challenge. I hope you accept the challenge, and I can't wait to see what you come up with. For the comments down below, I'm going to go a little weird with this question. Back then, I was all about Amy Mann, the Donnas, Avril Lavigne, and Dido. So out of those four, tell me your favorite song by one of them, or all of them if you listen to all of them. Just let me know down in the comments what your favorite song from an angry girl band was. Or just talk to me about something, because, you know, I just love for you to talk to me. So talk to me down in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you come around again soon. So bye. Bye.